This isn't a door he's ever walked through before, but Basil Leblanc still feels as though he's coming home.
It's kind of overpowering for me.
A few months ago, Leblanc didn't even know his old regiment, the Canadian Grenadier Guards, still existed. He also didn't know it still cared. Well, that was obvious from the first moment he and his sons walked in.
You need to know how much he's a hero to us.
Leblanc grew up in Nova Scotia, but when he got to Europe as a soldier, he was assigned to a Montreal regiment. He fought as a grenadier. After the war, Leblanc left the military and never looked back. He moved to the US and didn't even hold on to his medals, although he did keep his original beret.
When I found it, I said to my wife, there's an awful lot of sweat in the thing here out of fear.
Leblanc was a radio operator in a tank. After the war, he returned home with difficult memories, like so many soldiers. He was barely able to share stories even with his children.
I craved to hear his war stories.
How do you do, sir? My name's Jeff Greer.
The reconnection with the regiment was basically serendipity. Leblanc ran into an artist painting portraits of veterans of the Second World War. That artist, Chris Demarest, remembers Leblanc's first words to him.
He just looks at me and he says, I don't talk about it. He pauses and he says, because if I do, I tear up.
Demarest painted Leblanc and took the portrait on tour. He was in California at a museum last year when a retired Grenadier Guards commanding officer just happened to be on vacation, walked by, and noticed a very familiar cap badge.
And I said, I gotta reach out to him.
Henry Gorgie tracked Leblanc down in Massachusetts and invited him to Montreal. Leblanc was nervous at first, but in the end made the trip with 14 members of his family, sons, daughters, grandchildren, and his wife of 60 years. The regiment pinned new medals on Leblanc, but they also handed him one other commendation, a wound stripe.
Here you go, sir. Thank you very much.
Now, that stripe was more significant than anyone knew. It meant Leblanc was wounded in battle. February 26, 1945, his hand was mangled in an explosion. He was taken to a field hospital, and a corporal insulted him with a question painful even today. Was the injury self-inflicted?
I have never told this to anybody because it hurt too much.
Leblanc said he put the regiment behind him because he was afraid it too might have questioned his injury.
I thought, well, maybe they thought the same thing as that corporal did.
That insult haunted him for 70 years. The hurt kept him from ever reaching out to his past until he held that wound stripe.
I can't even imagine what that must have been like for him to be accused of that while men were bleeding to death on both sides of him in a 10-quarter mile from the front line.
And he never told anybody that story?
Never.
And the shell landed right amongst that crew.
Leblanc spent the end of the day doing something his family likely never expected. He told story after story, with the troops soaking up every word.
And of course, the whole world is falling on us. And so another few feet, and that could have been me. That could have been the end of the war for me, you know, the first day.
Leblanc's family says they left understanding him better than they ever had before. Basil Leblanc says he left with an injury inside finally healed. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.